Thanks for coming back to Constructive. This is episode 9. I've got Mike and Collin from Outbuild here. Hey guys, can you introduce yourself?
You first.
Yeah, so I'm Colin Preach. I'm a senior account executive at Outbuild, overseeing the growth of the Eastern region here. Got some good experience in my tenure here so far, 12 years, construction technology mostly experience. Was with a builder for 3 years out of college, then went to Bluebeam for about 7 years. I think tech years are like dog years, so learned a lot while I was there. And then spent some time at Procore as well before I came here. How about you, Mike?
Mike Wong, head of customer success at Outbuild. Before I was jumped over here about 2.5 years ago, I was with an owner building hospitals. So I've done hospital jobs. I was at Disney for a while building Star Wars land, but I was trained as an architect, recovering architect now. And then I was a subcontractor, general contractor, and then owner. So I've done all different sides of construction, and it was easy to jump over to Outbuild because of what we're providing for the construction industry. It's easy sell for us. So
Yeah. We were talking before we started recording just that I actually do have a unique relationship with scheduling in the construction industry. Kind of started my career in the forensic niche of construction. So I had to a lot of times the claims that we were working on were construction related court cases due to schedule delays. And so I spent a lot of time picking apart construction schedules early in my career and creating schedules out of daily reports and comparing them to planned schedules, as built schedules, and figuring out why construction projects get delayed and how much that can throw off a project. And so I do love schedules. I also have somewhat of a love-hate for the way we build them and how they're used. And so construction software, I think one of the biggest needs is in the scheduling aspect of construction. And I wonder if you guys could speak quickly to why did Outbuild choose scheduling, or did it just happenstance? And how important do you think scheduling is on a construction project?
Yeah,
Either
maybe
one of you. Yeah.
right.
yeah. So I mean, when we first started building this, and Franco, our CEO, went around and asked all these different construction groups, what could I build for you that's going to make the biggest impact, that doesn't have something that's already on the way of being implemented or built to solve that as a digital advance of technology and construction. And the resounding answer was, we need something that simply just connects our master schedule tools to our look ahead tools or our production schedule tools. And that's simple enough, right? I mean, it's really just, right now it's two different softwares, two different formats. They have different types of information. They have different stakeholders that are looking at that information. But it's, in a sense, supposed to be lockstep, one single source of truth. The heartbeat of the project, right, is whether you're looking short term or long term, you are supposed to be aligned with whatever that plan is both ways, right? And the problem is that the tools that are in the construction industry now, and even the mindsets behind these tools, you have these highly proficient people that are learning master scheduling techniques and how to run these very robust tools that provide all these different value add points in the schedule. But then the more you do that, the more you detach it from the people actually building buildings. And again, those people are the ones that are actually providing the value. So we're trying to flip that around of empowering the people that actually get the project built, right? Because that's why you're there. Everyone else is, in term the waste wheel part of lean, there's the waste part, and then there's the necessary non-value part, and then the value part. The guys building the wall are obviously the value part. PMs and schedulers and even forensic schedulers like you or yourself, you kind of dance between the fine line of being waste and necessary non-value, right? You want to be pretty deep and embedded into the necessary non-value, because the second you flip over to waste there, the guys in the field won't spend time with you because you're just wasting their time and you're not providing value to the team. So
I'll just say I think it's kind of in my DNA to have empathy for the field folks. My dad was a builder for 40 years and worked his way up as like a carpenter foreman actually. And something he told me when he kind of before he retired was, something he would get any superintendent to be interested to join the company he's with was, you are the author of your schedule, right? And it's kind of gotten to the point where that's not really the case anymore. And I think we're we're ultimately trying to come back to that state of saying, what is a highly paid superintendent really good at is being able to plan and being able to really manage people and herd cats and turn them into lions, right? And make them actually perform the work as they had planned to do and what the commitments are to be made and make happy clients. So I think I was kind of bought in on that, having, you know, a good amount of knowing what's out there in construction technology. There's a lot of, you know, fads or things that are coming and or almost too much of a point solution, but I think there's like a bigger shift here that we're after that's kind of saying, wait a minute, if you actually truly can make a connected look ahead to the schedule, you can potentially avoid the claims, you know, entirely. You can be proactive and not reactive. And I think that's what we're all after, right? It's really kind of what we're trying to get into this century for as construction professionals. So that's what got me bought in. It was kind of, you know, two conversations, one with John, our head of sales, who came from DPR. He knows the same challenges, and then Franco, who just pour their heart into this. And I think you'll see it if you've seen the product and talking to us. We're kind of abandoned misfits that are trying to shake things up, but with a really good empathetic reason and with really good intent for it. So
yeah, we're all sitting in the building right now, right? The buildings that were built that we live, work, and play in every day, they'll have stories, and nobody knows those stories. Nobody really asks questions about any of those stories, and it's like we want to tell that story in the sense of not that the job went to claim and there's all this litigation, or this owner made a ton of money, and there's like a different story that's told behind it, where you had people traveling for hours a day to be on that job. You had people buying gym memberships so they could sleep in their car and then shower at a shower so that they could be at the job every day. Like, there's stories there that I think are more interesting than what the facade of the building looks like. Nobody's telling those stories. So
it's true.
you're trying to, which is great. You're literally one of the people that's trying to tell those stories, which is awesome. We're trying to tell that story at a grand scale too.
It is fun to tell the story of builders, because I think you're right. It does get lost. But I also think in terms of schedules, there's like this spectrum of, yes, a schedule can be the reason you end up in the courtroom as a contractor or as an owner. Um, Technically, maybe the schedule isn't to blame, but the lack of adherence to it or whatever. But I've always thought that comes down a lot to buy-in. So if an owner creates a schedule for his project and says, I just want this thing done in a month and it's a year's worth of work, that's never going to work. And if you get a contractor to agree to it, most likely he's not going to meet that crazy schedule. But really, even at the contractor level, if you don't get, like you guys were just talking about, your superintendents to actually tell you what's the duration of this work, and if you just plop a schedule down on your superintendent and say, meet this, it's most likely not going to work. But what do you guys think about how maybe even Outbuild specifically can help give some of that buy-in to the parties that are actually in control of, like, how long is this work going to take? And then I wondered too if we could talk a little bit about maybe the meanings between critical path and critical flow and how that can affect a construction project, and what it means to kind of move away from this idea that we have to always have the critical path and schedule to it, and how that can affect a project negatively if we focus in too much on that.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
On all that. I'll take the first part about how Outbuilder, the tools that we've built, are trying to kind of increase productivity in terms of what's currently out there and how teams are currently working. So I like to tell stories about, you think about how a job site works. You have, like you said, an owner schedule that was made. It's even a tier or an extension past the owner. The owner hires a third-party scheduler that, again, they're just trying to prove their worth by making a schedule that's very vetted. It could be a schedule that's, for I don't know how big this building we're in right now, it's 40 stories, right? Something that is not overly crazy to build, but it has 5,000 line items for some reason, right? And that's created. The owner thinks that that is the best way to keep them out of claim, but in a sense, it's going to cause them to claim. It's totally backward. You're paying somebody, and not always, right? I'm not trying to generalize of like, don't make a super ornate schedule because it's always unnecessary. No, sometimes it is necessary. You're building a hospital or something that's got a lot of moving parts. construction is complex. You need to capture that
Yeah,
style.
the intent's right to have a catch-all.
But don't over complex. Don't make it overly complex, and also don't make it overly complex before you have your key players in place. Like the real issue is the timing of it. Like the detail will be there, but it will be the last responsible moment planning method, right? Or just the understanding of don't make decisions when you don't have all the answers. Like if you don't need to make that decision, why are you handing thousands of dollars to a third-party scheduler to make decisions before they even know what is possibly happening on site, before you even know what your building looks like? A lot of times, like this RFP schedule is made before even CDs are out. Like you don't even know what the building's made out of yet, and it's made, and that decision has a ripple effect all the way through to punch lists, basically, even to turnover. Of okay, we had dates and we had a structure, and I can't change that structure because it's in so many different contracts and litigation, and we're building concurrent delays off of it, and we're basing liquidated damages off of it. We can't change it because then it confuses everybody of what the expectation is. You can make very clear expectations, but give space for the field team to reach their potential. Give space for the field team to bring their expertise into that plan, so that not only is that plan going to be better, they'll buy into it because it's their plan. Like they understand that, yeah, we need to get the building dried in before winter. That makes sense. We don't want to snow in the building or rain in the building. All right, that's an easy milestone for all of us to work towards. Then you turn around and the millions of dollars you're handing to all your subcontractors, you're letting smart people do their job. Like, I'm hiring you to do a job. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to tell you what I need, and I need you to do it safely. I need you to do it with high quality. I need you to coordinate with the other tradesmen and women. That's it. Like, you said superintendent, and handing tools to superintendents to schedule. They shouldn't be scheduling. That's the problem. The problem is that you have these really proficient people that are burning out in the construction industry, and less people are coming in because they're hearing these horror stories about these very talented superintendents that all they do all day long is pull data out of teams that should be willingly giving it, that should be part of this plan, that should be trusting this team. You're requiring a handful of people to, again, herd cats.
Yeah.
Like, they should be lions already. They should be, you guys are professionals. You like this job. You wouldn't be doing it if you didn't like doing this specific part of construction. Bring that expertise into it. Be proud of what you're doing. I was in drywall for 6 years, and some of the guys that I worked with are intensely proud of what we were doing. And it was heartbreaking. Like, we were building hospitals in Northern California. We had to build OR rooms like 6 times because of just inefficiencies from the top of the food chain all the way down. Of nobody could make up their mind of how this thing was going to look, but they forced us to build something because they had to bill for it, or something stupid like that.
Hospitals are entrenched in liquidated damages.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
There's this huge pressure of like, we got to get this thing open because we got to start saving people's lives.
Yeah.
But
right.
Just think of the lives, the mental stability, and this was the example of people driving 3 hours every day to be on the job site. We had people coming from the Valley of California, driving 3 hours into the Bay Area because there's no way they could afford housing or a place to live anywhere close to these jobs. And they're buying gym memberships and living out of their car because they can't, any other way they can't survive in that area, right? But that's where the big job is. That's where this solid anchor of a project is for the next like 5 years. So projects like that are just full of waste. Like, there's just so much waste of, and again, the intense passion about building something correct the right time and making it look perfect. By the 5th time I had to send that framing crew back into that OR room, the quality was garbage. And I couldn't blame them for it. Because build a Lego tower and then take it apart 7 times, have somebody next to you take it apart in front of you. Do you feel compelled to build it again? No, you don't. You're like, I'm going to throw this together because I actually know that he's going to tear it apart again. Like, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the garbage we deal with.
And a quick note on buy-in too. Chris, on your last episode, Seth talked about how he sat with a superintendent every day and he learned so much. I think the same can be said just for getting technology buy-in, right? And it's a matter of kind of establishing trust and saying, we are going to try this way, but it's a better way, to use Todd's terms, right? But I also think we did this in Daytona, right? I posted about it recently, but we established this with the project director, Jason McFadden, and said, we're going to try this idea where we pair recent college grads with superintendents. We're going to have a great team that has this inherent idea that these college grads are coming in with fresh knowledge and know how to use technology. They grew up with it, right? Mike and I maybe had an iPhone when we started college, but we didn't grow up with it. So,
You're older than me, so
well, whatever, we're close now. But either way, is kind of it's almost exploiting that that young generation in a way, also getting them excited about being in the industry, and then pairing them with people that have been doing this for probably longer than they've been alive, and saying, sit down, learn from them on what is important to them on getting the schedule on track, under budget, or on budget at best case, right? And really what technology tools could be aiding in that effort. And Bart Mallow, we had, or the Daytona job, we had slanted plan tables with smart boards embedded in them, because it's an easier way of getting people that are already using something that, you know, they would be putting out the full size plan sets on. You replace that with a big TV, you digitize the situation without making it feel really full of friction. So I think that's, you talk about buy-in. I think it's really starting with trust, sitting down, taking the time to listen, for kind of the younger folks that are inherently just going to pick this stuff easier, and then having that symbiotic mentorship of saying, I can teach you a thing or two, and I can learn a thing or two from you, and just having that mutual respect is really how that happens. And I think if you're a vendor that makes technology that makes that feel seamless and makes that feel like it's a compliment to the work you're doing, then you're going to be more successful than one that's just kind of doing that guesswork or without visiting job sites like we love to do to really see what's useful for the next iteration or the next feature update. So I just think that's a big key to buy-in in general. So
That's awesome. Can I put you guys on the spot for a second here and ask maybe a harder question? Elephant
do.
in the room is you've got Primavera P6 or Oracle's suite of scheduling software that's pretty much been the gold standard for a long time in scheduling, and then you got Microsoft Project, and then there's a slew of other ones that have come and gone, and what kind of separates Outbuild? What do you think you're trying to do that's maybe a little bit different in this space, and what will attract people to it, but mostly like what makes it as valuable, more valuable than these other options? And I wonder too, like for someone like me, and I keep adding multiple questions here, so apologies
Right.
if it gets confusing, but for someone like me, I sometimes there's a specification on a project that just says Primavera, you know, or whatever. What is your advice when it comes to trying to change a system into, hey, there's Outbuild does this better. We want to use it. How do we get construction teams to want to use Outbuild, or in general, how to get teams to change in a positive way?
I really allotted to, I was asked the question like, how's it going for you? Right. You talk to an owner that's putting in, hey, you need to use P6. Totally understand. I understand why you're saying that too. I was an owner, right? I understand why we had these requirements in our RFPs. It's because we got burned, because you got screwed on a job, because you had a dead dog sub that didn't show up, cost you millions of dollars, you didn't get the thing open in time. I know why, right? But ask the other question, why did it happen? Buildings are built by people. They're built by people, and there is an emotional, messy side of people that make them not great at building things sometimes, especially if you're not really, the best superintendents, like you're saying, the ones that are training these younger up and coming construction professionals, they have intense people skills because they've had to learn them, right? And they get things done. Again, there's the superintendents that lead by fear that get things done, sure,
pushers, yeah,
pushers, but you're yelling only the productivity only goes as far as you can yell, right? If you can't hear around the corner, there's not as much happening over there, right?
try pulling once in a while.
Yeah, try actually thinking of how do I motivate this person? Because everybody has the same, Maslow's pyramid of human need, right? Everyone has the same human needs other than food and water, which is at the bottom. There's safety and consistency, and then there's like purpose. Then there's like belonging, right? Like think of that. Like, how do you get these people to feel like when I walk on this job site, that guy's my brother, that person's my sister. Like, it doesn't have to be like super deep, like, I take a bullet for that person. But in a sense, you're in a very dangerous place doing dangerous things, and you're working really hard, giving literally pieces of your body to the job sometimes, fortunately, right? Because it's not a safe place. You got to think of it that way. You can't think of it as what's the best executive level tool that can show me 17 different critical paths so that I can really turn the wrench on this one subcontractor so they don't screw me over like the last one did. Like you're already failing. And I said this in another crowd where it was LinkedIn conversation I was having, but you're bringing a prenuptial agreement to your first date. Like, yeah, hey, come join this job.
I don't trust you while I figure it
No, yeah, you're just gonna screw me, but smile, right? You know, so and it comes from the top, I think, too. It's like if owners and even general contractors that talk to owners be like, we got to think of it this way, right? Until robots are building buildings and we can treat the builders like machines, it will always be this way. And you're going to deal with this coming cross of dip in skilled workforce and extreme complexity of what we're trying to build. People think construction is complex now. Wait until the architects really tap into designing with AI. Well, I was an architect. When I was first starting, they taught us how to draw by hand because they're trying to hold on to the old ways of doing things sometimes. And I hope my design professor listens to this because I always got in his case about teaching us how to hand draft first. But it makes good designers too, but you're going to be replaced by these crazy facades and crazy buildings that aren't going to be, I'd say, fully thought out on like how all the details work. And it's going to get in front of the actual builders and engineers, right? That have to be like, okay, how do I actually make this floating soffit not fall and kill somebody? Because for some reason, architects just love floating soffits that aren't connected to anything, that are highly dangerous. Yeah. So, and that's all, you know, you have the crossroads of the complexity, and then nobody wants to start doing this. Nobody wants to, you know, you don't talk to a 5-year-old kid and be like, I'm going to be a superintendent of a job site. Maybe if their dad was, maybe if they've seen it, they want to be astronauts or something else, right? Something that they've seen in other media forms that are cool. Nobody talks about construction. Nobody tells the awesome stories of the awesome people in construction. And they've just been, I mean, I think the construction workforce has been marginalized for a very long time. And we were suffering as a society because of it. That's what I believe.
So, and then on a practical level, right? I think we culturally don't, similar to like, you know, Procore and Autodesk and just the platforms that agree to say everybody should be connected on a single platform, project teams downstream. We don't really, I guess, adhere to the idea that it needs to be among a specialized few to have access to this specialized software. I think it should be, depending on who you are, it should adapt to kind of meeting you with where you are, right? Having a look ahead tool that has read-only access to the master schedule makes more sense than having choosing to spend $3,000 per person for something that's kind of overkill. I will, again, on the practical level too, we're probably more after, Seth, the Microsoft projects of the world today than we are for P6, because frankly, that to us is kind of unacceptable to still be using Microsoft project on millions of dollar projects that are frankly something that came out in the 80s or 90s that's not even made for construction. It's kind of the, you know, you still hear about kind of cringeworthy size projects that are using P6 and project, and the super has their own project license to go maintain their own schedule, and Excel for look aheads. And yeah, I think we're after trimming the fat in those areas than we are. We actually have, I think, utmost respect for Oracle and where they are in the market, and like where they, yeah, we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for kind of the you know, the giants that we're eventually, hopefully, maybe one day could stand on the shoulders of. But I think that the goal right now is to kind of say we can definitely condense those projects and Excel workflows by reducing the waste there. There's just simply no reason to have that when you can use a product like ours. So
it's again, it's like transitioning all the efforts that are put in building product and technology tools for the wrong people. Like I hate the contention of when I get into a training, because I train a lot of people, I train teams to train other people. And the first thing here is like, what if they say that, you know, the subcontractors will never get in? The boots on the ground people will never get into this software. They don't even have computers. I was like, all right, do you ever walk past them at lunchtime? What are they doing? They're watching TikTok on their phones. Yeah. They're streaming Netflix, right? And good for them. They need a break, but they know technology. Like they don't live under a rock, right? They can understand how to click on something and change a number, right? And that's the simple stuff we're building. Is we're thinking about empowering them, not the C-suite. The C-suite information that you're getting because of the fact that this ground level data input is guessed. Like you can, we'll turn this around and ask you about this. You should tell everybody about what you did, right? You used to have to go into looking at a schedule that was signed in a contract and then making one off of a daily log and
Yeah.
trying to see where that matched and where it didn't happen so that you could your owner could creatively fight with each other.
Yeah, it
Or
makes me think too, sorry to interrupt you, but it makes me think about flexibility in a schedule because as I was doing that, like you said, the briefest version of the background is in a claim about a scheduled delay, a lot of times the the support will myself in those cases would go through every single daily log and basically create a schedule based on what I see in that daily log. So I make millions of activities out of this and then condense them into little groups of activities. And what I found every time, because these are already in claims, every time I found that people don't adhere to their schedule. They don't really utilize it the way it's meant to be utilized. They don't update it the way it's meant to be updated. They don't, even if a delay happens, sometimes they don't record it at all. Sometimes they record it haphazardly. And so basically, a lot of the claims come down to this might have been a great schedule when they built it, but nothing really ever got updated or changed, or nobody asked the drywall sub, like, can you do this work in 10 days, or whatever the thing is. So it just felt like people weren't really using the schedule. It was a reporting tool, not a building tool. That seemed like the biggest crux of the problem in the claims world is this is just, and I see it even now, unfortunately. Now I'm kind of trying to apply that knowledge to keep projects out of claims, like you guys mentioned. And I'm realizing that even when I ask a contractor to give me a schedule, it's like that means I'm not going to be building the project. Like, you want me to sit on my computer for a day and build a schedule when I could be building the project? And it's frustrating to me because it is, I almost sympathize with them. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, some of these schedules don't really help you the way they should. And sometimes I'm a little bit confused about how to solve that problem because I think they can. And I think, Colin, one of the things you were mentioning that got me kind of excited was there's a younger generation coming into the construction industry that wants to get into the technology and are excited to get into the technology, and they can and help buy into that older generation that these tools will make your job quicker, easier, better, instead of it being like every laborer hears about a schedule and groans because they don't want to look at it, they don't want to pull up the PDF, they don't want to pull up the software, they don't want to give input because if they do, it's just going to be, no, you've got to do it quicker than that or whatever. So
Yeah. They're
what do you,
afraid to stick their neck out too, right? And that's, again, the tool was built not for them. They're trying to be forced into a box in a system that they know doesn't really benefit them. But I'll kind of counter with the best framers that I'd ever seen. Whenever I walked the job site and they got to a new section of work, they would sit there for 10 minutes and just stare at what they were going to do for the day. And I had superintendents, the good superintendents that understood and actually taught them to do this, not yelling at them. Like, you're not sitting there wasting time. You're sharpening the axe for 6 hours. So the seventh hour, you can cut it down to 10 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
That's where we have to change the mentality of build them a tool that lets them sharpen their axe with everybody else that's involved in that section of work. Like, even the better framers on top of that, they would spend 10 minutes looking at what they were about to build. And then they double check the tags on the floor to make sure all the ROs were right for all the mechanical penetrations that were going through it. And they would go double check with the other guys real quick. That's collaboration and planning for their work, knowing that they're going to do high quality super quickly. And the guys that did that would be done by lunch compared to the guys that just started working. I just need to go get material. I got to get my cart here. I got to get my chop saw. I'm not even going to look at the tags. I'll get to that tag when I get there. And they're redoing work the whole day, right? Instead of the one guy that took the time to plan, was right there. I'm wasting time. I can't plan. I got to go work. Where it's sharpen the axe. Figure out what needs to happen. And if you're missing something, don't do it, right? The same last responsible moment of, if I don't have that RO, when I get to that point, I'm gonna have to stop anyways. So let's just make sure I got everything I need and then I can get it done.
Mm.
And that's the other thing that our tool does really well. We kind of touched on that. Your claims that you had to deal with. It's not that maybe the tool wasn't being used. It was also the team wasn't built to be robust to change. They weren't tracking constraints in a proactive way that kept that schedule on task. And after a while, you just get tired of, well, we keep saying these things are happening, but we're also not mirroring that all these RFIs aren't answered, all of these permits aren't in, all these submittals aren't approved. And I can put that on there, but I don't know all this stuff. I just know it's probably not going to happen.
Mm.
You just lose trust instantly. You lose interest. You lose commitment to any of this plan because it just keeps failing. So why does anybody keep trying to prop it up? So our tool gives you an ability, again, the grassroots empowerment of the people that know. They have a plan in place and they protect that plan with forecasting of what we call roadblocks that go right on the plan, visually show as little roadblock cones. If we're trying to do this, but this is what I see in the way. Again, opening up to 20 or 30 people out on the job site instead of 2 people in the trailer. That's so many more eyes. That's so many more years of experience. It's a hive mind of finding all those things that could possibly stop this plant. And I was like comparing too, like we have look aheads that have a really good plan, but are super clean of roadblocks. And we have look aheads that are littered with roadblocks. And I like showing in training, you want the one that's littered with roadblocks because that means we all know there's problems out there. That means we're honest about what's out there.
They're like the digital form of a real, before it becomes a real roadblock on the project. It's, it's identifying a constraint.
Yeah.
To say this will impede me from doing my work unless you clear the path here.
Unless you clear the path. And that's where you're training superintendents to not plan work. They're removing those roadblocks. That's why they exist. Unless you're self-performing work, you are there to remove constraints. You are there to make sure everyone has what they need. You are there to make sure everyone is safe in the way they're working because they're focused on their stuff most of the time. They're not always paying attention to the crews that are 3 floors above them that might be doing something dangerous. That's what you're there for. You're there to protect the people that are providing value. You don't provide value by telling them what to do. You make them less value.
It seems similar to the problem that virtual design and construction is trying to solve in the sense that you want to give it an opportunity to basically build the project digitally before you build it physically. And
Great point.
similarly, you want to think through like the simple example of, okay, the foundation has to go in before the walls can go in, and the walls have to go in before the roof has to go in. And just that exercise, if you take every construction project and think through what has to come before what and how are we going to get to the end point, and if you really do that exercise, you are going to find those roadblocks that could have potentially put your project into a claim situation. But there's another side of that spectrum, which is you don't have to worry about the claim side. You can give the client a product quicker than they expected, under budget. There's a whole nother side of the spectrum that I think really, to get to that side of the spectrum, you have to spend more time in planning. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
In building culture too, right? It's like setting up this idea that we're going to say the roof needs to be done, but then everybody that's part of building that roof, the guy that's actually putting the roof in, has got bought out as early as you can possibly bring them in. And even if they're not low bid, but if there's a team that wants to work with you because you've respected them,
they get a seat at the table too. Yeah.
You get a seat at the table. Again, the other thing too, we're not relinquishing any power. It's not like your subs are coming in and just running the schedule and your master schedule's all over the place. Master is a completely separate but connected tool that you still have to request change to. There's still a change log, part of that. And then all that's logged too, which is the other big part of the tools that you use now. You put a change in, it's really just a PM guessing like, well, I think this is why this changed. I'm just going to adjust this a bit for the OAC meeting. You do that 100 times, you completely lose sight of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And then poor Seth's got to come in at the end of the job and try to piece that back together with absolutely no knowledge of what just happened.
Why does the schedule look so different from a month ago?
And then you spend 2 years in court fighting over a plan that was maybe right at some point and a plan that is totally assumed. And they're like, well, these are different. And obviously, because of the dailies, that again, you're based off the fact that people get complacent about putting daily information in. You're comparing that and you're fighting over millions and billions of dollars of construction work off of 2 tools that were never made to make the building actually go up faster with higher quality. Like,
Yeah.
I hate like sitting here and acting like, oh my God, this is so stupid, but I don't get it. I just don't get it. It just doesn't make sense at all why we do this.
And that's our why.
And that's our why, right? And again, call us young, scrappy 33 construction hoodlums that just want to ruin everything, but something needs to change.
Well, it seems good intentioned. I think you're trying to I don't see you guys actually trying to ruin anything. I think that's awesome. You guys have identified a sore spot and you're working on it. And I think you will get pushback, because people don't like to change,
Yeah.
myself included. But
Yeah.
um I don't know too. I wanted to talk about, I just kind of connected with Collin based on his LinkedIn presence, and I can tell you guys have a thing for community. And I wondered if you guys wanted to talk about Outbuild in terms of trying to build a community around it or solving problems for the construction industry. It kind of goes to my passion about this podcast. Be constructive, build up, and be helpful. What about that kind of resonates with you guys or Outbuild?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it starts with what I was passionate about before I got in the construction industry is also still just kind of there today. So in my last year of college, I worked at the Apple store back when they were still wearing the blue shirts with the bigger Apple logo, and it was just kind of mayhem. Always people in and out of the store, but I absolutely loved it. I love the idea of taking people that have just never picked up really a product, right? People that are in their 60 to 70-year-old that are immediately kind of like, you just see the light bulb happen and be like, this is so much easier to do my email or to check the weather, right? Or whatever it is. And I got really excited about how that could impact, the world, right? And just that was in 2010, 2011. So when I had the opportunity to jump into construction, you just look at the state of construction and how little adopted it is as an industry for technology. And I think we all have a role to play in that if we're in it, right? I'm potentially, I guess, arguably on the younger side compared to my builder peers, but at 33 years old, I have enough to feel like I have authority to say, we can make an impact if we're using the right solutions here. And I've witnessed it, at the organization I worked for right out of college, actually, making good cultural change. And I think, with Bluebeam, they'd had the strong contention of really kind of lean in with customers, understand how they're working. They even adopted a kind of a customer support or customer success approach called the concierge approach. And that was essentially saying, try to anticipate their needs, regardless of who you're talking to. Be there for them, be available, answer the call, support them with what they're doing because what they're doing is important. And I think just having that is, I think, inherent in the culture here at Outbuild. There's a lot of, I'm probably a broken record here internally where I'm like, this reminds me a lot of early days Bluebeam, but I think that's kind of the fun of being here with a smaller, agile company. I think if you're a prospective customer of ours, we're going to take care of you. We aren't too big to where we won't answer the call or where we won't answer a live chat within less than a minute or whatever. But that's a big
I
part
hope we
of it.
never lose that too. That's
Yeah.
that's the other part of it as well, is like to be startup culture as long as you possibly can while you're growing. Like, we have to scale. It's what our goal is. We want to make all these changes.
Yeah, we don't want to be like Google, right? Don't be evil or whatever. I mean, but I think it's super important, I think, to have that emphasis on support from the onset. It's going to get, you don't become a household name without having really good trust for years and years and years. And I think Procore and Bluebeam had that really good, and that's what caught my attention there. I'm also just side point, I'm excited about just the academic approach of stuff, right? So I think going to some of the universities like where my parents live, they're close to Clemson, and I've been talking to Adam Hoots, and I hope it's okay to plug his name, but he's a part of the Lean Builder group and kind of that community of superintendents, and he's going to do actually some assistant professorship with his master's degree. And we're meeting next Tuesday. I'm going to talk to him about, hey, is there anything I can do as a vendor to support some of these new college grads in the construction science department at Clemson? And I want to do that at any university I can, right? And we want to do that from that support. So that's a big part, I think, is like maybe a broader mission or being able to actually get people excited. And if we're just making you start with a reusable rocket at SpaceX to get to Mars, right? If we're making a percentage increase likelihood that someone's going to choose construction over something else, we'll have done a good thing. And so I think that's exciting.
We're going to need it, right? Because
Yeah,
more and more people me included, right? I went architecture, but then kind of got into construction just because of the people I met early,
Yeah.
and they got me hooked early, right? And they were superintendents. They weren't project managers, and I was in the management thread, right? I was in the trades as a management team is necessary, not value. But the superintendents I worked with all day that I chased around with a notebook all day long. And I realized I called you older than me. You're the same age.
Yeah, we're both 33.
Yeah, no,
I'm glad you corrected it.
Sorry, I forgot about that. You act older, so it's
Thanks.
yeah, it's hard to tell. But no, the people I used to chase around with notebooks and the passion that they live their lives and where they, have grown into it. There's just such a community of spectacular people.
Yeah.
That again, they kind of hold themselves as because they know how to get stuff done and they hate LinkedIn or they hate like any tools now that where you're communicating out. There's those people that are breaking out finally, but they're also getting ostracized by their own peers. It's like, dude, don't talk about it. Just go build something, right? Like, don't, and we'll make other plugs, right? Like the B1M and Get Construction Talking and all this mental health stuff.
Construction Brothers.
Construction Brothers. Like all these people are trying to tell these stories, and finally people are realizing like there's a lot there.
People like this.
There's a community of people there that want to be heard and want to be respected. And again, I hope that really doing that people first focus and the way we build our products, right? That we change the mentality from stop building these executive tools that only help you at the end of a job after it's already gone south. And they don't really even help you, right? They give you a way to constructively fight each other. That's it. Otherwise, it'd just be bedlam in the courtroom of like, okay, I don't really know where we base this off of or that off of, because I've gone through enough claims to, not personally, but I've been in companies that have gone through claims, hospital work, boy. And it's just like, okay, I'm gonna just sit in my corner and gather all my ammunition, and I'm just gonna fight you tooth and nail because I need to survive this claim, right? Or I have all this data and I need to milk as much money out of you as possible because you've already sunk so much resource into this. I've lost 5 great PMs and 4 great superintendents on your job because of the way that the culture was set up.
Yeah.
Not the tools. It doesn't even matter. If you had the right culture, you could run a schedule with thread and paper. You really could.
Yeah.
And we used to. Yeah. Like things used to get built without that because
visited that in Hawaii or right?
No, it was we have a team in Australia that literally their previous software was string and paper. Mm-hmm. They're one of our best users because they just brought culture of like, we know how to, they're a custom home builder in Australia, and they're like, we know how to motivate our team, and they're luckily a small mom and pop shop that can keep that culture thriving, and they transition so easy. It's like, it doesn't matter about the tool, it's about the principles and what you're teaching about why these things exist and who's the most important person that should be listened to. And then the people that aren't important just need to be quiet and sit in the back of the room and absorb the information so they can be better support. Like that's the idea that we're trying to change, and we're building that community slowly. We have webinars starting called Trailer Talks. We're on our 4th one that I'm giving in end of this month on pole plating. Yeah, which will be a lot about this. Like, it's not going to be about the technicalities of it. It's about how do you get 20 people in a room for 30 minutes fully focused on one thing, right? Or a couple things, right? Or come prepared so that they can be the most productive versions of themselves for their trade partners. Like, they're not wasting time filling out all the stuff. They already came prepared. They came with all the answers to what questions they've already been asked, right? Makes those things a lot better, right? And again, it's just culture. Like, make the culture worth it, or nobody is going to fill these gaps. There's already a widening skills gap in construction. Nobody's going to fill these gaps. Nobody's going to want to do this work, and we are already in trouble, right? So,
yeah, you made me think. I think this is a change of direction a little bit, so apologies. But for some reason, I was thinking about simple versus complex or powerful, and I think Albert Einstein says something like, if you can't explain it to a 3rd grader, you don't know it well enough, And I wonder too, at every software company, I kind of always wonder, how do you balance between making a simple solution for a complex problem when you also want it to be a very powerful solution. You don't just want it to be simple.
I think the best, we keep quoting Elon Musk, but the best process is no process, right? And there's a lot of teams that, and my wife's in product, and I know a bunch of teams that are in product. Talking to a lot of people that actually went into product from construction because they're like, there's no way it takes this long to build this stuff. It does. It's really hard to build product no matter what industry you're in terms of technology. It starts with asking the right people, right? We got into this kind of, like any startup, we have construction professionals that are in the company, and we get into this rut of asking highly biased, as in myself and others, professionals what we should be building as tools. And that is very much the wrong way to do it.
And then you guys end up saying, protect the product, protect the product.
We used to say protect the product because it's
We're going
make
down
it
the
a
road we
pop-up.
do.
Don't build a new tool, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You're going to slow us down from what we can actually build as the simple, robust tool if we just keep trying to do these features that one or two people are asking for. So again, we're building a community of people. We're opening up that tool to it. There's a bunch of different tools where you can upvote requests. A lot of software companies do this, right? But getting construction professionals to actually get in and be excited about it, we thought would be harder. Our first webinar had 100 people registered for it. Like day two, like it was, and I'm not tooting our own horn, like we were surprised. Like we put this out there and so many people wanted to talk about what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to feed off that wave of passion of, oh my goodness, this has been a problem for so long. I have so much to say. And just trying to capture those little nuggets of, what if we connected submittal information directly to construction activities? That would save us an entire chunk of our schedule that was allotted to all the submittal data that I'm already running in tools like Procore. You guys just connect that. And we did that.
Yeah.
And it saved huge amounts. Like I wish we could somehow calculate how many schedule line items we've saved from all these people's schedules by just having a simple connection between the actual construction activity and the Procore submittal or any of these PM tools that we're going to connect to, just straight to the submittal, because all the dates and the reviews and all the stuff's all happening over there.
Or the hours it takes to just generate an OAC report.
Yeah. Or the poor guy that's got to go in and export his submittal log and then update dates manually. If it's connected to a schedule tool like Outbuild, I can shift the date and it changes everywhere instantly. And it's controlled that way, of the sense of I can produce a report out of Procore or any of my project management tools, and it gives me live dates compared to where my actual schedule is. Like those simple, less process, the better, less steps, the better. It used to take, it was 3 people to do that same process. That's now I move one thing and it just updates. Right? That's the kind of stuff that we want to find. And we find that by asking the people that are in it all day long. And it's not just asking the question, it's asking it the right way. Because somebody that has been processing claims for so long, they're biased to the way they do it. So it's like almost, you try to capture the freshest perspective, like the first people coming into the industry, right? You show them this. What do you think? Don't say anything. What do you think?
Yeah.
And just see what they say. And it surprises you every time because you're in your own rut of, he got trained a certain way from his dad. I got trained a certain way from all the people that I have learned from, right? And it's different than probably what needs to be done. The only way to find that is by asking lots of questions. We're very, very generous people to give us their time. They're volunteering their time, like way more than I expected that to happen.
There's a saying from that guy Nathan Woods that says like respect for perspective, and his construction progress coalition used to be PDF coalition, but I think that's all. You just see that when people from leadership join a new company, they're some of the best people to really say like, what do you think of our processes? What do you think of our systems? What do you think of the way that we're doing this? And they'd be like, this doesn't work. Why do you have this, 5 solutions that can, this 3, you can get it at least down to 2. So that new perspective could really be useful. Our challenge is just sit with us and let's see if there's a way that we can do that. It just takes an open mind. It takes some of your time, but
we'll come to you.
Conversations are free,
and we'll bring you stuff. Food. We're going to go to a job site. We're bringing sandwiches. Love. That's how Jimmy John's got his start, right? It's people I know Jimmy John's. He used to just chuck sandwiches at people from the corner of the street. Hey, here's a free sandwich.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, and that's how people knew him. It's the same thing of like, if it's food, it's food. I'll go to your job site.
Your time will feed you.
I'll walk around your job site and go talk to your subs. I miss that. I used to do that every day. 5 a.m. I was on a job site and not checking sandwiches at people, but I'm more than happy. That's where we always train too. We meet them where they are. Literally go to them. Like I'm flying to New Jersey this afternoon to go to a training, and I'm all over the place, right? Like we're trying to hit as many people as we can, but not force them to be in some off-site PM super training that takes them out of the job site. And then in that training, all they're thinking about is all the crap that's going wrong right now on the job site that they're not fixing. Because again, it's the wrong mindset of I'm not empowering my people to reach their full potential. I'm doing all their jobs for them. I'm probably going to burn out eventually, but I just got to keep going, right? They're very, two things about construction people. They're extremely hardworking and they're very stubborn. Yeah, at least the ones that I run into, and that's just a recipe for bad things, right? There's got to be those poor professionals need to have some sort of release from this stuff, right? And it's not coming from leadership. It's not coming from the tools that all these companies are building for them. It's like just another thing that they're going to have to do that really doesn't solve problems for them.
Yeah, that elevating superintendent's book, I was listening to a little bit on the way here, and it said like you don't know stress until you've been a superintendent.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
it's real stress.
And it's always going to be a stressful job because you are, even if you were the perfect version of a necessary non-value support team, you are managing a lot of different things that are happening in your job. You're coming in and this person's got a problem, that fire is burning over there, that architect doesn't have that done, and my owner's walking the job site tomorrow and it's dirtier than crap, and I got to go clean everything, make sure it's clean. Like that's what's happening, right? But on top of that is I need to spend 4 hours building a look ahead in Excel that no one's going to look at. Oh, okay. Yeah. So let's cut that out of their workforce, right? Let's cut that out of what they need to do every day so they can at least manage what's not safe right away. And because a dirty job site's a dangerous job site, right? Let's go clean the job site because that's important. I don't need to be sitting in Excel doing my subcontractor's work and also doing it through telephone I'm kind of guessing. I heard him say this the other day, but I'm putting it in here. And if I don't like build a good full blank culture and I put it up on the board and he just kind of nods and he's not really paying attention because something else is happening too. It's like, it's just a recipe for like, okay, that plan is there.
I think that was my best LinkedIn post. It was like superintendents ditch your Excel spreadsheets, and everybody's like, "Huh?" They all leaned in on.
I know.
How do I do that?
Our step that we have in our training, where we go from a look ahead that's got a nice Gantt, and you hit a button, it turns into an Excel basically. Actually, not a printout, but a PDF that looks exactly like it. Like superintendents are like, "Can we start this tomorrow?"
Yeah.
Like, so I don't, because again, they're highly paid, and you have them sitting in front of a computer doing mindless work that only they can do, because again, all the constraints are either in their mind, on their texts in their phone, or in their email, which many superintendents don't know how to even organize emails by conversation, which is wild. I remember that was a big thing I taught.
Yeah.
Like you guys can organize this so that
there's a better way.
All your threads are in one place instead of getting 17 different messages. That blew some of my superintendents' mind. I always remember that of like, that exists as a thing.
Yeah. For me, it was Bluebeam when before, PlanGrid and Procore does the auto labeling of the sheet titles. Bluebeam did the draw a box around the sheet title, and that used to be an intern's job.
I use that like all the time.
Labeling every single page. It's like such a time saver.
Yeah.
It makes me think too about just in terms of my job now, a lot of it is I have a phone call or a field conversation in the field with somebody. We solve a problem together, the two of us, and over that phone call or in the field. And then I realize, okay, the problem isn't really solved yet. Now I have to go write an email to all of this group of people. I also have to update a schedule. I also have to submit this form to this agency, or there's like 10 other things that have to happen after I think that I've just solved the problem. And so I'd love across the board in the construction industry to get rid of that kind of stuff anytime we can automate some of those things. And it sounds like a great way to do it in the scheduling world is with that look ahead. But I wonder, that leads me into maybe our last little topic here, which is like the future of this. Do you guys have thoughts about where you're headed or where the construction industry is headed that you want to share?
We haven't brought, the common buzzword of AI into the room quite yet.
Yeah, and we talk about AI, and we're a couple of weeks out from another view of the home view, which is, we were calling it kind of code name schedules, but it's kind of stacking schedules in a Gantt form to be able to see the progress across a portfolio level of projects, which many people are asking for. from an executive level, even just to the project executives that are like running 3 projects in 3 different states, right? So that's the near-term future.
Yeah, near term. And that again, we're building this base database of relevant boots on the ground data. It's no longer a PM that is trying to retrospectively look back 6 to 10 months about what actually happened. It's being captured as it's happening. And then we also have the last layer down of Outbuild is a weekly planner that gives you a point to, you draw a line in the sand. This is what we were going to say we were going to do on Monday. It's now Friday. We track that progress. We close the week. We track why some of those things didn't get done in variances. And then that data starts showing you trends as you're doing it. PPC, PRR, which we show as a roadblock removal number, percentage of, there were 10 roadblocks in the plan and the team was able to get 8 of them done. That's 80%. So really good PRR, right? You want to see high, you want to see lots of constraints, but lots of them getting removed too. You want to keep that number high because the second that dips, your PPC is going to take a hit. Your ability to commit to good work is going to take a hit.
So we think it's creating a new category for reporting on executive level, or for companies to be able to look at historics and say, we can now define scheduling as a key responsible area to focus on and do better on, right? We can evaluate project management staff on how on top of roadblocks removal they were versus how often they let that fall behind. Same thing with superintendents and your trades, right? You want your best trades on your best projects, you can now grade them if they're using our look ahead based on how responsive they are to look ahead activity, how much they're adding roadblocks, how much they're collaborating. Once you've given the voice, then you can measure it, right? Measure what matters.
Yeah.
So,
and if I put on my owner hat that I put down 2 years ago now, I would say from these tools that are building these AI models and the things to learn off of schedule, they're loading schedules that, again, we're fudged, we're adjusted, we're not used the right way. Again, coming from your experience, you've seen that so many times. They're building tools off of bad data. And it's hard, and I hate to say that as a very blunt subject, but those schedules, you have 1,000 schedules, great. How many of those schedules are you 100% accurate that weren't fudged at some point, that weren't adjusted for an OSC meeting, that didn't have, it wasn't rebuilt off of daily logs that were complacently put together because the superintendent was forced to, like we just mentioned, a superintendent's day has lots of things in it. And a daily log is important, but again, you do it every day, you're gonna become complacent at it. So again, we haven't even figured out that yet. Like, how do you get, if you're gonna build tools that tell you how buildings need to be built, how do you get to the level of detail you need to be at to know that AI model or ML model could learn the right thing? And there's these tools that you plug all these schedules into and it just tells you where your risk is. And then you ask, why is it saying that? And it's because the algorithm says so. Okay. It's that billboard that was, I forgot which country it was in, but hey, AI, build this building, right? The data that comes out of it gives you lots of insight, but then you have to feed it back to humans because it's still humans building buildings. So build the tool so that the human can use it. And then let's learn all together about what all these humans that haven't been heard, haven't think that they even have a voice. Let's hear what that voice is.
and you can make AI work on structured data or unstructured data, but I think people are going to be more trusting to structured data, and that's easier when it's all in the same container.
Especially construction. They're not just going to be like, oh, we pulled data from all these different places. It's like, well, that's not how we do work. That's not how we build buildings. Like, we want an AI that knows how we build buildings.
Yep.
When again, you haven't heard the real voice of because no one's been talking, because you've literally told them to shut up and just build this. You're not going to get somebody, honestly, that wants to be honest about how this thing got built or how it should have been built.
Do you think that's awesome. And do you think there's more out there that's kind of like that? Because I really like the way Outbuild seems to have taken away the pain of the 3 week look ahead. Like, because I have, like you guys have been saying, I've seen schedules that were built by a team that then the 3 week look ahead comes to me in an Excel format, and I'm like, wait, you have scheduling software. Why aren't you like doing a filter and letting it? And they're like, we don't know the schedule. And I'm like, who built the schedule? Not me. And it's just like, why does this happen? I feel like that's an awesome way to solve that problem, where it's just like very easy to get a 3 week look ahead out of your schedule, because that's huge. But do you think there's other areas maybe within scheduling too, that you can automate something that might make a big change? Or Um, yeah, do you have ideas about that?
I mean, we have aspirations of, again, with this base level data, you can type in prompts of, we're building in this area, we have this size footprint, we have this many people we're going to build with. And maybe there's a database of all these different subs and their consistent work methods and how much they buy into lean planning or collaborative planning, right? And what their actual PPCs are, and be like, hey, give me a great sub list of people that would want to run this job this way.
Mm.
And then boom, just a prompt that comes out. Heads up for this, most of the schedules that are run in this area. Again, we're not trying to cross other people's proprietary data. It's not what we do as a technology company. But as a whole, we want to build a community that's based off of shared data. I think, a lot of companies that build these tools, they want to keep all this stuff to themselves. I think the only way to really make the biggest dent in all these problems we're dealing with is to be like, what can we learn from each other? Like, I just want to see people enjoy going to work every day. They're going into a very dangerous place. They're spending many, many hours away from their family. They're usually driving a ridiculous amount of hours in sure trucks that are given to them, but they still have to sit their butts in a truck for 4 hours a day away from their families, right? I want them to at least enjoy where they're going. Because if they're going to not spend time with their kids and their families and doing something else that they enjoy, at least go where they are. They feel like there's purpose, like they can turn around and be proud of what's behind them, right? Like that's just like basic, should be anything, whatever industry it is. And I think construction could benefit from that because happier people make better buildings and they do it safer and they do it with higher quality. So like, why wouldn't you want to just make your people happier?
I'll just say the others out there, we're the only ones that have married scheduling and planning. I think there's scheduling and then there's planning. And we think that the schedule is the strategic vision and the planning is the execution of that strategic vision. Why should they be in two different places?
Hmm. Do you guys have anything else you want to plug? What do we do to come check out your software or become friends with the two of you?
Oh boy.
LinkedIn, start if you
LinkedIn,
want.
yep,
Link
Yeah.
Brent.
Yeah, and we don't know how to do this right, so we probably don't have anything set up.
Outbuild.com. Yeah.
Outbuild.com
Yeah.
is, you can check out the software. We have a webinar coming up, so there's links to sign up for the webinar. Get on our email blast list that we send out on product updates and everything else. We put in a lot of content. We appreciate you having us on this podcast, but we're trying to create more and more and more. Collin thinks he posts too much. He's probably not even posting enough on
We all do two times a day.
we need to get out there, right? And that's kind of the mentality from builders of like, don't talk. Don't try to like, we're not trying to be famous, we're trying to be important. I could care less. Like I don't want to be the face of anything. And unfortunately, I'm all over the website too, because I was the only person.
You look good. Yeah.
I didn't want to be, right? Like I don't want to be the face of anything. I just want to be important in terms of get me out to a job site so I could feed you, get you interested in this. And then with your push, we go back to your owner and be like, this needs to change. We need to change this about how we're doing things. Right. Yeah. I'd rather work in the shadows. Like we don't need to be the face of anything. It's just nobody's speaking. Nobody's trying. There are people trying to do it, but like in a way that we're trying to do it.
Yeah.
Simplify the basic tool so that the field teams feel empowered to be a part of your planning so that your planning could be better.
I heard too that you bring food or throw sandwiches, so that's a nice.
I actually say in training too, if you find something and break it, like in the software, and it breaks, I'll take lunch too.
Maybe one day when we store, we'll have a sandwich gun. Just a sandwich shooter.
We should just start a sandwich shop too with the kind of sandwiches they throw at people. So
true.
Cool. Thanks for coming on, guys. Enjoyed meeting you. We should do it again at some point. Maybe a year from now, some big things will change and you'll come back on and I will have the whole world will be listening at that point. We'll see.
That would be awesome.
Seth, really cool. You're doing an awesome thing, man. Keep it up. We look
Well,
forward to
not everybody cares about construction, but I've been even trying to make this podcast a little bit for people who aren't in the technical side of construction. So I'm even thinking too, and if you guys have suggestions for guests, I want to do some episodes that would be interesting to people who aren't in the construction industry. I'm just going to throw this out here on the podcast, but I'm looking to make it interesting to people who aren't project managers or superintendents, and I think part of that is just talking to people like you guys, making friendships, figuring out what makes you tick, and I think some of the things you guys said can apply in any industry, in any career too. So
Yeah.
thanks again for coming on. Would love to continue the relationship. Have a good day, guys.
Absolutely.
You too, Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
See ya.
Bye.